Whether you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, ashamed, scared, irritated, or whatever you're feeling, this video is going to help you see your feelings in a new way and teach you 10 really powerful strategies for managing them. I'm Dr. Suzanne Manser. I'm a clinical psychologist and I've been a therapist for almost 30 years. I'm going to tell you pretty straight up how it is. With feelings, you can try to control them, but it generally doesn't go well in the long term. We don't get to decide which ones are allowed and which ones aren't. That's not how it works. I know how it does work, and I'm going to share it with you, so get ready to take some notes. Every day in my private practice, I teach people how to manage their feelings instead of letting their feelings manage them. This doesn't mean controlling your feelings, because again, that's not a thing. It's actually about acceptance, which is a word that a lot of people don't like, and for sure some of you just cringed. Some people see acceptance as giving up in some way, like it's being weak. For other people, acceptance is just an abstract idea that nobody really knows how to do. So part of what I'm going to talk about today is why acceptance is just about being realistic, and it's actually very wise. It has nothing to do with giving up. Well, it's actually about giving up the stuff that doesn't work and focusing on what does work. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. I'm always going to be real. So feelings are hard, and it can be really hard to manage them. Feelings are in our body, which is what makes them so compelling. Feelings can make our stomach hurt or our chest feel tight. Feelings can be actually painful. They can be loud and strong. They're just really hard to ignore. And that's what makes them so difficult to manage. But we don't have to listen to them if they're not helpful. We're going to be talking about that a lot in this video. We get to decide whether we listen to our feelings or not. Before we get to the 10 strategies, let's start with the basics. Let's name some feelings so we know what we're talking about. This is a feelings wheel. I got it from feelingswheel.com. If you ever have a hard time naming what you're feeling, look up a feelings wheel. These wheels usually have some version of happy, sad, disgusted, angry, fearful, bad, and surprised in the middle. And then they become more nuanced in their feelings in the outer two tiers. So take a minute and identify the feelings that show up most often for you. Do you feel vulnerable or disappointed? Hurt or lonely? Insignificant or exposed? Embarrassed? Indifferent? Empty? Powerless? Infuriated? All right, let's do a little bit of education. This is going to help with getting some distance from your feelings, which is a key to managing your feelings. We're going to be talking about how to get distance from your feelings later. Did you know that feelings and emotions are not the same thing? Feelings come from emotions, and this turns out to be important for being able to manage your feelings. So an emotion is our body's subconscious response to a stimulus, something that happens in our body, usually, that we don't notice consciously. So our subconscious notices something, and we have an emotional response, which might include a change in heart rate or a change in our facial expression. The emotional response will run its course in about 90 seconds if we don't pay any attention to it. When an emotion is triggered, the body experiences a surge of biochemicals like cortisol or adrenaline. There are often sensations like increased heart rate, muscle tension, or a change in breathing because of the biochemicals. After about 90 seconds, these chemicals will naturally dissipate. However, if we notice the emotion, then we develop a feeling in response to it. So feelings are the conscious interpretations of the emotion. Emotions are the raw data, and feelings are the stories we tell about the raw data. The stories we tell about the emotions determine not only the feeling, but how long the feeling lasts. So how long a feeling lasts depends on mostly how much we ruminate about it, how much we focus on it. The feelings that tend to last the shortest are disgust, shame, humiliation, fear, compassion, and irritation. Those feelings typically last about a half an hour. Feelings that tend to last the longest are anxiety, hope, desperation, joy, hatred, and sadness. Sadness is the outlier. It tends to last about 5 days, which is twice as long as the next closest feeling, which is hatred. So part of the take-home message of all of this, in terms of distinguishing between emotions and feelings, is that feelings are subjective and based on each person and their experience. So once you're aware of a feeling, you can start wondering what story you've told that influenced what that feeling is. This helps you to see the feeling as a changeable, subjective experience, as opposed to an unchangeable truth. And that is crucial to being able to manage your feelings, regardless of what they are. You can also recognize that if you can manage to not focus on that feeling, it won't last as long. That's another crucial point. Now that we have some foundation of understanding what feelings are and aren't, I want to talk about how to manage your feelings. The key is in how you relate to your feelings. So that's what we're going to talk about next. As I've said before, feelings can be painful and they can take up a lot of space. We tend to categorize the painful or uncomfortable ones as bad and the enjoyable ones as good. Our instinct is to try to feel only the good ones and to fight the bad ones. We try to not have the bad feelings. We try to avoid bad feelings by using toxic positivity, by chasing happiness, through addiction, through overworking, by being constantly busy or constantly online, by oversleeping or overexercising, and by eating too much or too little. There are endless ways to try to avoid our feelings. It's not only that we don't want to feel the bad feelings because they're painful or uncomfortable, but we actually believe we're not supposed to have the bad feelings. We believe that if we're doing life right, we won't feel the bad feelings. In other words, we believe that there's a way to not feel bad feelings, and we believe that we've done something wrong if we do feel the bad ones. If you haven't guessed by the way I set that up, these beliefs are incorrect. We are not supposed to feel only the fun feelings. That's not how life works. Feeling a painful or uncomfortable feeling doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means life is being life. That's a big mindset shift for a lot of people. So if you're taking notes, make sure you write that down. There's no way to avoid the hard feelings, and it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. Understanding this is a big part of the work of managing your feelings. How you think about your feelings is important. It's important to think about them as helpful or unhelpful instead of good or bad. Feelings aren't good or bad, and if you think about them that way, you're more likely to see the bad ones as problems. Also, some feelings are helpful in some contexts and unhelpful in other contexts. For example, anger can be helpful if I want to be assertive when somebody's trying to cheat me out of money, but it can be unhelpful if I'm trying to help my child regulate themselves. So feelings are unhelpful or helpful based on context, on what's going on in that moment. Your job is to start noticing what you're feeling and then asking if there's anything unhelpful about it, given what's going on in that moment. This can be easier when you have the perspective of feelings as messengers. There's this way of understanding feelings that I find incredibly helpful, which is understanding feelings to be messengers. The idea is that feelings show up to give us a message that they think is important for us to have in that moment. It's then up to us to decide if the message is accurate and worth listening to. From this framework, anger shows up to give us the message that somebody has crossed one of our boundaries. Anger gives us the energy and the fire to be assertive about protecting ourselves when this happens. Anxiety shows up to give us the message that there's danger afoot. It makes us start to look around and prepare for the danger. However, when we feel anxious, that doesn't automatically mean that there is a danger. When we feel anger, it doesn't automatically mean that somebody has actually crossed a boundary. The goal is to notice the feeling and decide how to respond to it, rather than automatically reacting to it. If you want to learn more about feelings as messengers, there's a great book that I'll put in the caption. Through this perspective, it's clear that just because a feeling is uncomfortable or even painful doesn't automatically make it unhelpful. Painful feelings, like grief, can be very meaningful. We can also learn from painful feelings, and painful or uncomfortable feelings can be motivating. So it's useful to get into the habit of pausing to decide how you want to relate to a feeling. Labeling feelings as helpful and unhelpful instead of good and bad is going to take some practice. So plan to pay attention to how you're thinking about your feelings as you go forward. The next step is to decide how you want to relate to the feeling, which means essentially, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to pay attention to it or not? Generally speaking, we want to focus on the helpful feelings and not focus on the unhelpful feelings. It's as simple and not easy as that. In general, we want to focus on the feelings that make us feel more connected with ourselves, more connected with our lives, the ones that motivate us to do what feels meaningful. We don't want to focus on the feelings that take us away from that. We also need to keep in mind that feelings aren't permanent. Feelings come and go, and we don't have a ton of say about which ones show up or how long they stay around. Like I said before, the more we focus on a feeling, the longer it does tend to stay around. But that's kind of about the amount of control we have. Of course, feelings can also come and go completely independently of what we're doing. We have to expect feelings to change. We're glad about the change when it's a hard feeling that changes, but we're bummed about it when it's a fun feeling. We'd like to feel happy forever, but that's not actually a thing. Nobody can feel happy all the time. Life just doesn't work that way. Feelings being inherently impermanent is important to accept. It's a reminder that it's not a failure if you're not constantly happy. It's simply not possible to always feel happy. It's also not a failure if you feel sad or depressed, even if there's no reason to feel that way. Again, we simply don't have that much control over our feelings. So the overall goal in managing your feelings is to allow all of the feelings that show up to be there because they are there. This is acceptance, which I brought up earlier. For some people, acceptance is a bad word, but here's the thing. Acceptance just means that you're agreeing that what is happening is happening. That's really it. It doesn't mean that you like it. It doesn't mean that you condone it. It doesn't mean that you wanted it. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to try to change it. Acceptance of a feeling just means that you agree that you're feeling that feeling and you're not fighting against it being there as if you had control over it being there. Earlier, I said that acceptance is about being realistic and being wise. I just talked about why it's realistic. Let me tell you about why it's wise. When you accept something, you get energy back. You spend lots of energy fighting with something that you don't have the power to make go away. That's not very wise. We drain our energy by focusing on our feelings, by scheming ways to make a bad feeling go away, by complaining about it, by feeling like it's wrong that we're having the feeling, maybe feeling like we're wrong for having the feeling. We listen to podcasts to try to figure out how to make the feeling go away. We spend so much energy trying to not have uncomfortable feelings, and it doesn't work. If instead you stop fighting with your feelings, if you stop trying to get them to not exist, you'll get that energy back. And that's a key point. We are not interested in wasting our energy on unhelpful feelings. Here's another key point. Feelings, even unhelpful feelings, can exist without taking up all the space. When feelings take up all the space, they're all we can feel. They're all we can think about. Those feelings usually drive our actions. We act in ways to try to not feel those feelings. You know how this is. That's probably why you're here. This is what we're trying to change, right? We can't make those feelings go away immediately, but we can get to a point where the feelings are there without taking up all the space. So anxiety can be there, and you can still choose to focus on other things. If that sounds impossible, stick with me through the end of this video. If you have an anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder, you may need more assistance in the form of medication or regular therapy sessions or other types of treatment to be able to keep the painful feelings from constantly taking up all the space. So, to be clear, what you don't want to do with unhelpful feelings is try to resist them, to try to act like they shouldn't be there, to see them as a problem. You don't want to fight with them, you don't want to focus on them. All of that gives them energy and drains your energy and only makes you more focused on them. That's the opposite of what we're going for. In general, what we're going to work toward with our strategies and our mindset is creating some distance between you and the feeling. With distance, you have the space to choose how to respond to it instead of reacting to it. When the feeling seems a little further away or seems a little smaller, it can feel more manageable. You're able to see other things when you look around. When the feeling is so big, that's all you can see. When the feeling is distant, when it is out here or is smaller, you can choose to focus on other feelings or thoughts or situations that will actually be helpful to focus on. Not that any of this is easy to do. Moving your focus where you want it takes a lot of effort and repetition. So now we've come to the strategies portion of the video. I'm going to teach you different things you can do to manage your feelings instead of letting them manage you. We'll learn strategies that have to do with acceptance, distance, and physically calming your body. Ready? The first strategy is the simplest strategy of the 10. This strategy is name the feeling. Just naming your feeling can help drain it of its power. Making it more concrete, making it less mysterious or abstract, makes it easier to manage. So go back to a feelings wheel if that's helpful, and get as specific as you can when you name the feeling that you're feeling. Then, when you notice that you're feeling it, say to yourself, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or whatever it is. This is the first step of a lot of the other strategies, but it's also a strategy all on its own. The second strategy comes from a poem by the poet Rumi. In the 13th century, Rumi wrote this poem called The Guest House. I'm going to read it. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So when a feeling shows up, imagine welcoming it in like a welcomed guest, just like you would welcome a more fun feeling. Talk to the feelings like they're people. Hey, sorrow, come on in. I'm glad you're here. I've made a room for you. If you can imagine your body to be a guest house full of bedrooms for your guests, you can then imagine what that particular feeling's room would look like. You can make it comfortable and inviting for them. This is acceptance. The feeling can then be here without it being in every room, so to speak, and without you spending a lot of energy on it. You welcome it in, you invite it to go to its room. To be clear, all of this takes practice. It's a very different mindset than most of us are used to. But when you do this, you're going to see how much less energy it takes to deal with unhelpful feelings. The third strategy is called the Microscopic Explorer, and it's one of my very favorite strategies. It's kind of fun, actually. This involves guided imagery. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes in a minute, and I'm going to lead you through a scene. But for now, I'd like you to choose an unhelpful feeling that shows up for you, one that you can make yourself feel right now. So go ahead and do that. Once you have that feeling identified, and you can maybe feel it, ask yourself where you feel that feeling in your body. Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your belly? Do you feel it in your throat? Do you feel it all over? Once you have that information, we'll start the strategy. So please close your eyes or have a soft gaze on the floor. Now, imagine that you are a microscopic explorer from outer space. You are a tiny, tiny alien who is here on Earth to observe and learn about it. This tiny alien just entered your body and is now standing in front of that feeling that you just identified. It doesn't know that it's standing in front of a feeling, right? It's here to learn. So the Microscopic Explorer pulls out a pen and a clipboard and starts looking around. I'm going to ask you, the Microscopic Explorer, a series of questions about this thing that you're looking at, this thing that's a feeling. Just take note of the answers. Ready? Is this thing taking up all the space, or is there room around it? What shape is this thing? Does it have any corners or edges? Is it three-dimensional or flat? What color or colors is it? Does it move at all, or is it static? What texture is it? Now I'd like you to walk around it to see if it looks any different from the sides or the back. So go ahead and walk around it. And then once you're back at the front, we're going to take a pause from the Microscopic Explorer and we're going to do some deep breathing. So keep your eyes closed and leave the Explorer where they are, and then just start focusing on your breath. So I'd like you to breathe in for a count of 4 or 5 seconds, and then breathe out for a count of 5 or 6 seconds. The numbers don't matter so much, but when you exhale, I want you to imagine that breath being directed to the feeling that you were just standing in front of. So imagine the breath swirling around that feeling with each exhale. So go ahead and breathe in for a count of 4 or 5 seconds. And then breathe out for a count of 5 or 6 seconds, directing your breath to the feeling. I'm going to be quiet and let you just do a few deep breaths. After your next exhale, we're going to return to the Microscopic Explorer. So go ahead and get back into the Microscopic Explorer, standing in front of this thing, this feeling. I'm going to ask you the same questions as before. The point is to see if anything has changed or shifted while you were away. So, is this thing taking up all the space, or is there room around it? What shape is this thing? Does it have edges or corners? Is it three-dimensional or flat? What color or colors is it? Does it move? What texture is it, if you could touch it? And then again, I want you to walk around it and see if it looks any different from the sides or the back. Okay, before we finish this strategy, see if there's anything you want to do or say to this feeling. Do you want to hug it or kick it? Do you want to tell it anything or ask it anything? If so, go ahead and take a moment to do that. And then slowly open your eyes and gently come back into the room. The point of this strategy is to give you some distance from your feeling and help you relate to it differently. So by observing it and answering non-judgmental questions about it, you are relating to it differently. You are coming at it with a different feeling. by seeing it as existing inside of you, you're seeing that it's not bigger than you, which it can feel like. And by seeing it as a thing, you're making it more tangible, less abstract, and easier to work with. And by doing that breathing and directing the breath to it, you're softening yourself. You're softening your relationship with the feeling, which often makes the feeling seem smaller or less threatening in some way when you return to it. So going forward, when you feel the feeling, see the image in your head and remind yourself of this new way of relating to it. Strategy number 4 is called the broom closet, and this is another kind of imagination situation. So I want you to, first of all, identify a feeling that tends to show up for you that you don't love. Could be the same one that you use in the Microscopic Explorer. So identify a feeling. And then I want you to imagine that you are inside of a tiny little broom closet with this feeling. So I want you to kind of feel the broom closet. There's not much room for anything besides you. There's maybe like a broom sticking into your back, and there's some like cleaning supplies on shelves and things. So you're in this tiny little broom closet. You're in there with your feeling. The feeling is kind of taking up all the space, and that's uncomfortable, right? It's just you and the feeling, and you can't focus on anything but that feeling. So now I want you to imagine the broom closet changing into a huge warehouse that's like 3 football fields big. So now there's all this space for you and this feeling to be in. And I want you to imagine sending the feeling to the other end of the warehouse, way over there. So now the feeling is still there, but it looks a lot smaller. And there's so much space between you and the feeling. Now you can focus, you can look around and focus on other feelings and other things and other thoughts. So that's the idea of the broom closet strategy, is when you're feeling really connected with the feeling, when all you can feel is that feeling, change the context. Imagine a huge warehouse and send the feeling to the other end and notice how that feels. The 5th strategy for managing your feelings is actually one of my favorites. It's called monsters on the bus. So I want you to imagine that you're a bus driver, and you have been a bus driver for quite a while. You've got your route. You enjoy being a bus driver. It makes you feel good. And your route has only right turns on it. So when you're doing your route, you only turn right. So now imagine that you have stopped at a bus stop. Some passengers have gotten on. They go to the back of the bus and they start yelling and screaming, and they're kind of scary, and they're like waving chains and knives around and stuff like that. And you kind of look in the the rear view mirror or whatever, you see them, they're scary, but they're staying in the back of the bus. So you just keep doing your route, you keep driving, you keep turning right. And as you keep driving and turning right, those monsters are getting closer and closer. They're moving up the bus, closer and closer to you. And so they're getting louder and louder, and you're getting more scared. And as they get closer, you're able to hear that what they're saying is, turn left, we want you to turn left. So now they're kind of like right behind you, and you are getting really scared because they are really scary and loud and knives and chains and all the things. So you start turning left, right? Because you don't want them to hurt you. So you start turning left, and as you start turning left, the monsters get quiet and calm, and that feels much better. So you keep turning left, you keep driving, you turn left, they're quiet and calm, it feels better, but you notice that you're not where you're supposed to be. You're not on your route anymore, you're not turning right, you're not doing the thing that feels so meaningful to you. So it's kind of easier in that you're not feeling scared by these monsters, but it doesn't feel good or meaningful. And then it occurs to you that when the monsters were being so threatening, when they were being loud because you were turning right, they were being scary, but they weren't actually hurting you. They didn't actually take any action. So you start turning right. You start doing the thing that they don't want you to do. And predictably, they start getting loud again. They start screaming at you, waving their knives and chains, doing all the things. But they're not hurting you. They're just being loud and scary. So you start getting back on your old route. You're driving, you're turning right. They are being loud and scary. They're right behind you, but they're not hurting you. And now you're starting to feel better again because you're feeling like you're doing this thing that is actually meaningful to you. You're doing the thing that you want to be doing. You're not listening to them. You're doing the thing that you want to be doing. And that's sort of the goal of this strategy, is to realize that when your feelings are being loud, our kind of automatic response is to do whatever we need to do to get them to be quiet. So, if my anxiety is kicked up because I'm at a grocery store and I'm around a lot of people, I might want to leave the grocery store immediately or not go to the grocery store in the first place, right? Because then my anxiety doesn't get loud. But then if going to grocery stores is meaningful to me or important to me, then I'm not doing the thing that's meaningful to me. I'm not doing the thing that I find value in. And that's not going to make my life feel very good. So the more that you can recognize that as loud and scary and aversive as feelings can be, they don't actually hurt you. They don't actually do anything to you. And you can still do the stuff that feels important to you. You can still do the things that feel valuable and meaningful to you, even though the feelings are being so loud. And when you do the things that are valuable and meaningful to you, you're connecting with yourself again. You're going to feel more grounded and you're going to feel better in sort of the bigger picture way. So try monsters on the bus. Try noticing which of your feelings are monsters, and then try not listening to them and see what happens. The sixth strategy is called the shot glass metaphor. And the point of this strategy is to help you get more distance from your feelings and give them more space to be in. So I want you to imagine having a shot glass that you fill with water, and then you put a ton of red food coloring in that water. So now you've got a shot glass of really, 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 really intensely red water. And that intense red color represents the intense feeling that you are typically trying to get away from or that you're trying to manage. So we've got a shot glass full of really, really, really red liquid. I want you to imagine dumping that shot glass into a goldfish bowl full of water. So you dump the shot glass into the goldfish bowl full of water. There's more water, there's more space for that color. So it maybe dilutes a little bit. Maybe it's a little bit less red, but not much less red. So then you take the goldfish bowl and you dump it into a bathtub full of water. So now there's quite a bit more water, and the red dilutes quite a bit, and now it's maybe kind of a bright pink or something. So the feeling is not quite as intense and maybe more manageable. And then you imagine dumping the bathtub into the ocean, and now there's all this space for the red to be in, all this space for the feelings to be in. And now they're so diluted that you can't see them at all. You can't see the red at all. Theoretically, you can't feel the feeling at all. That's not really how that works. But the idea is if you can give your feelings space instead of focusing on them and, like we're talking about in the broom closet strategy, if you just focus on them and, grumble about them and complain about them or whatever, you're just going to feel them. You're just going to get more of them. But if you can give them space, if you can, imagine that ocean to contain all of your feelings in, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel softer. It's going to feel less intense. And that's ultimately what we're going for. The seventh strategy is coming back to some imagery. We're going to do some imagery around the idea of expansion. So first imagine the painful or uncomfortable feeling inside of your body, kind of like we did with Microscopic Explorer. And notice how big the feeling feels in your body, kind of how much space it's taking up. Then I want you to imagine the boundaries of your body expanding outward. So the size of the feeling doesn't change, but now there's more room around it. There's more room to bring in other feelings or other points of focus. Take a few deep breaths to feel that space. Focus more on the space, identify more with the space than the feeling. And then see if you can imagine your body expanding even more, or the boundaries disappearing altogether, so that the feeling, which again hasn't changed in size, now has the space of the whole room around it. Now there's a ton of space around the feeling. So continue to breathe and feel into that space. The more space there is, the easier it is to focus on the space instead of the feeling. This concept is often used for grief in particular. Grief, missing somebody, missing something, that doesn't change, but the container for the grief can get bigger. It can expand. And again, the bigger the container is, the less kind of friction there is, the less you have to focus on the feeling, and the more you can focus on the space. The 8th strategy in learning to manage your feelings is breath work. A lot of you are probably familiar with this. But when you're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode, when you're feeling really anxious or really worked up, there are 2 breathing patterns that are especially helpful. Actually, there are many breathing patterns that are helpful, but these are 2 especially good ones. The first is simply to make sure that when you breathe, that your exhale is longer than your inhale. That's it. So let's do a few together. Let's breathe in for 4 seconds and breathe out for 5 seconds. And we'll do that 3 times, just to play with it. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's just having a longer exhale than inhale. The second breathing pattern is called box breathing. If you're not familiar with box breathing, you inhale for a certain number of seconds, hold the breath for that same number of seconds, exhale for that same number of seconds, and hold the breath for that same number of seconds. So let's try it together one time using 5 seconds. We'll make a box. Ready? Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you're doing breath work, it's helpful to do the breathing for at least a minute or 2, but you might want to do it for 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even 10 minutes, however long you have. But the idea is to just sort of pay attention to your body and notice when you start to feel calmer or when you start to feel better. That's a sign that you're managing your feelings. The 9th strategy I'm going to teach you today are actually a set of strategies. These are strategies that are more focused on the body. So the first 2 strategies that I'm going to teach you in this set of strategies are tapping strategies. For the first one, you put your right hand on your left shoulder, left hand on your right shoulder, and you just alternate tapping like this. And you just, again, do that until you start to feel a little bit better, until that really loud feeling has gotten a little bit quieter. The other tapping method is, again, right hand on left side, left hand on right side, just under your collarbone, tapping, not alternating this time, just simultaneously. And again, you want to tap for at least a minute. And the goal is, as you're tapping, that really loud feeling, that really uncomfortable feeling gets a little bit quieter. And part of the way that tapping helps with that is that because you're crossing your midline, because your right is going to your left and your left hand is going to your right, you're engaging both sides of your brain. This is called bilateral stimulation, and it really helps with relaxation. Also, just sort of the rhythmic nature of the tapping helps to calm your body. So that's tapping. There's another body-oriented thing that you can do called the somatic shake. And that's literally, you stand up, and this is really good for if you're anxious or stressed, and you just shake your body. That's it. Just shake your body. And kind of the idea is to feel the feelings coming out of your body, but just shake your body. Another similar thing that you can do, another body-focused strategy that you can use is if you are feeling stressed or angry in particular, you grab a cushion or a pillow and you stand up and you throw it on the ground and you throw it hard. And when you do that, you keep your legs strong and you keep your feet grounded into the floor and you throw your pillow or your cushion. And then the last strategy in this set of body-focused strategies is to use cold. So if you put a cold pack on your sternum or under your armpits or on the back of your neck, especially when you're feeling activated, when you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or panicky, That engages the vagus nerve, it engages the parasympathetic nervous system, and it just calms the body down. So consider tapping, consider shaking, consider throwing a cushion down, and consider using cold as a way of managing your feelings. The 10th and final strategy is actually the hardest. It's self-compassion. So broadly speaking, self-compassion is just being kind to yourself when you're in pain. And research shows that it's actually super helpful. Self-compassion reduces depression, anxiety, and stress, and it increases resilience. So it helps soften the hard feelings so they don't remain so prominent. This is very helpful when you're trying to manage your feelings, right? So with self-compassion, the idea is that you recognize that pain is an unavoidable human experience. This helps you to not judge yourself for having it, not be so hard on yourself. And that makes it easier for you to be kind to yourself about it. And by the way, it doesn't matter why you're in pain or even if you caused the pain. If you are in emotional pain, be kind to yourself about it. Don't be a jerk to yourself about it. If you don't know how to be compassionate to yourself, and most people don't, think about what you would say to a friend who's in the same situation, going through the same thing, and then say that to yourself. You can also put a hand over your heart and put your other hand over the first hand to feel, that feels to your body like it's being hugged, which is a very compassionate gesture. You can also make that first hand into a fist. Put your second hand over that. Same deal. Your body feels this like it's being hugged. Okay, that's what I've got for you today on managing your feelings. The goal is to see your feelings as separate from you so you can decide how much energy you want to give to any given feeling at any given moment. And again, I recognize that if you have a clinical disorder, it's not this easy. And it's not this easy even if you don't. It's going to take lots of practice and effort to shift the way you relate to your feelings. It might sound totally wild to consider welcoming your painful feelings in. I want you to pick the strategies that resonate with you and practice them. I've got a few books in the caption that might help you as you do this work. And as always, I'd love to hear which strategies work best for you. So please come back and tell me in the comments. Thanks for spending this time with me.